Variables. Variables are specially allocated computer's memory for storing some data which can be accessed or overridden at any time if necessary. Let me explain with a simple example. Imagine that a variable is an empty box and the information written into it kind of object. It turns out that we put an object in a box, having previously created it and assigned a name to it so that it can be easily found among the other boxes and we can pick up or change the object inside it. But you can store liquid in boxes. A barrel is much better for this. Each container for its own needs. For a variable, we call it a type of variable, and the kind of information is called the data type. Also, you won't specifically store half of a liter of water in barrels for this. Bottle would be much better. To create a variable in Blueprint, just click the plus sign in the variable section and then come up with a name and assign this name to it. Usually, variable names can be uppercase or lowercase letters, underscores, hyphens, and numbers from 0 to 9. In the case of Blueprint, any characters can be present in the name of the variables. For example, I'll name the variable var1. Now let's move to the upper right part of the screen. Here you can make settings for the variable. Here we can change name and type of variable. On the right side of the variable type, we can change the variable to an array. We'll analyze the array in detail a bit later, but in a nutshell, this is also a variable, but only with a large number of cells. That is, if we can put some just value in variable, let's say a digit, then a large number of these values can be placed in array. An array is needed to use a large number of variables of the same type. Set and map are also arrays, only more narrowly specialized. Mostly either a variable or an array is used. The default value type indicates the information that will be stored in the variable. To put it there, first you need to compile. Now let's analyze all the types of variables point by point. Boolean. Boolean variable can store only two values, true or false, 1 or 0. Well, as you can see in the blueprint itself, this is tick or not tick. To work with variables, you need to drag them onto the blueprint work surface from the list of variables on the left side. Blueprint prompts us to choose what we want, to get data from a variable or set data for a variable, that is, put data into it. We can see that set node is an executive node since it has an input and output, and get only allows you to take information from it. Also, for convenience, we hold down the left control and drag. It will automatically be dragged as get. If we hold down the left alt and drag, it will be dragged as set. This also works for the right control alt. We can put information into a variable right away in the default value section or by logic using the set node. Let's take a look at the rest of the variable types. For each type, I'll create a new variable. I can press the plus or just duplicate an existing variables and then change the type. If you duplicate variables, they are automatically indexed and assigned a number. The next data type is byte. A byte can store an integer number from 0 to 255. Zero by default. Well, the most popular, frequently used type of variables is the integer. Integer can store numbers from -32,768 to +2,767. The blueprint variable can store numbers like this. Float also store numbers in itself, but only fractional numbers with a decimal fraction, or as they say, a floating point number. For example, 3/10. Float variables allows you to keep just colossal numbers in itself, but such numbers are possible only with integers. Decimals up to 1 million, that is a 6-digit number after the dot, is possible only if the integer of the fraction is from -15 to +15. If exceeded, then the accuracy is lost, and if you use large numbers, then fractional number will be inaccurate or rounded. Let's use this number. And the fraction is rounded to 0 or loses its accuracy. But we can safely use 5/10, its accuracy won't be lost. But with the rest of the fractions, with the exception of 5/10, it won't fly. Next type is name. Allows you to store a string in itself, which can consist of any characters. But if you put the numbers in the string name and in similar variables of this type, then it will be impossible to carry out any logical calculation with it. That is, it won't be possible to add, divide, and so on, just store information. But of course, it will be possible to convert a string into number if there's a number in this string. In simple words, the name string is used to store some separate words. The string variable can store string in itself. These can be sentences made up of different symbols. Next, the variable text can also store sentences, strings, any characters, but only in large quantities, not like the variable string or name. The actual name of the variable type speaks for itself. Type of variable vector stores in itself, you won't believe, vector. The vector can be the global position of the object in the space along the x and y and z axis, as well as the scale along the x and y and z axis, and rotation along x and y and z axis. You can also store colors in vector. Vector consists of 3 variables of float type. Here we can put or select from a variable all the information at once, and specifically which one of the 3 axes. Right-click on the circle. Split struct pin. Now it's clear that we can only get what we need. You can also do it with the rest here and here. Break cells and collect them as well. There's a second way to break down or collect information. And make groups the given into one bundle. The rotator looks similar but stores data for the angle of rotation of the object in space. In fact, a variable of the rotator types is similar to vector. And the last type is transform. It combines all three types of global object position variables: location, reversal, and scale. They can also be broken down into subcategories, and these categories can also be subcategorized down to individual value. So we have analyzed the main types of variables. But that's not all. Object can also be stored into variables, be it some other blueprint, some kind of 3D model, or character. Also, we can put a structure. It can be its own structure, we'll analyze it later, or some specific structure from the engine. Interfaces. Don't confuse with the UMG game interface that displays HP and everything like that. This is exactly the blueprint interface that serves for convenient data exchange between blueprints. Object can also be placed in variables. For example, we can also put actor blueprint in a variable. Well, then there is a huge list of different blueprint classes. Also, numbering. Numbering is kind of files for storing information. You can also prohibit the receipt of data in the variables and mark here if you only want to receive data from variable. Then we look at the right side of the picture in the form of an eye. This gives access to the variables from outside. Let's say if we drag the blueprint to our scene and click on it. Then in the right side, which refers to the settings of a specific blueprint, in the default tab, we can find this variable which we've opened for the public access. And we can already set its value from here. This is for convenience. Here we have sorted out the main type of variables, so we can move on.